Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. Today is Tuesday, so you know who's joining me, my buddy Satoshi Sean. I was very curious with what was going on in South Korea, so I asked Grok what he thought of martial law, or she. I don't know. Do we have to get into gender about everything? I don't know. Anyway, I grokked it up, and I want to share with you about martial law and what might happen if martial law were instituted here in America. And I'm going to ask Sean his thoughts. So be right back right after this. Hey, Sean, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Hey, Lisa, I hope you took a shower after you grokked it up.
I grokked it up.
That was so funny.
Like searched it up. Grokked it up.
But it's just that I'm going to use.
Did it sound vulgar? I'm sorry.
It was one guy, he was talking about, we were watching a movie, and he did the air quotes, and he was, I forget, I got to watch it, but it was the funniest thing, he called it. So I was like, I'm using that from now on.
Like searching it up or Googling something?
No, grokking it up is hilarious.
Grokking it up, yeah.
I grokked it up, bro. That's all I know. Yeah, that's a good one.
Grok it up.
Yeah.
Well, so Cannon always said, search it up instead of Google it. He'd go, search it up. Search it up. So that's like,
it's one thing that I was thinking about that, like when a brand becomes the product, which normal, I don't want to say normal, let me rephrase that, which most of the country doesn't know, but in the South, if you have a 7-Up,
you're having a Coke.
Yeah. I was so confused. Yeah. The first time I went to a picnic at my girlfriend's house, she's like, "Oh, we have so many kinds of Coke." I was like,
"Do you want a Coke? Well, what kind?"
New Coke went away like a long time ago. There's Diet Coke, and this is before Coke Zero.
Yeah.
She goes, "No, we got like Mountain Dew and Sprite," and I was like,
"Yeah, you'll go to a restaurant and they'll say, 'Do you want a Coke?'"
Yeah.
What kind?
Yeah, I mean, is Pepsi okay? We have Pepsi products.
Well, the other thing that's very similar to that I did. So I was raised in Arizona when I was really little, but then mostly Houston. I never heard until I came to Oklahoma. We're running around with, kids in high school, whatever. And they're like, come to my mom's house, or come on to my mom's house. And I was like, oh, are her parents separated? But that's just, it's her mom's house.
Yeah.
Her parents are together, but that's her mom's house.
Yeah.
It's not her house.
And you know what? That is something that Black people said where I grew up in the North.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, everyone, there is a lot of stuff that I think is Southern. I grew up in the ghetto with a lot of Black friends. So
that's interesting. I never.
It was. I never heard it by anyone else. But yeah, my mom's house. Yeah.
My mom's house. Yeah, I'd never heard that before until I was
That's just, and it's not even made of tin anymore, but people call it tin foil. It's aluminum foil. But it used to be made out of tin, so people call it tin foil. There's a lot of stuff like that. It's just the brand took over.
Yeah.
What it is.
That's funny. Very funny. So I grokked it up. I grokked up martial law because I think a lot of people know by now, or if you haven't heard, the President Lee of South Korea declared martial law sometime our time this morning. And then he was seen climbing the fences of Parliament or something and trying to film it. And I guess the people of South Korea were going to the building and like opposing it, but not violently, to my knowledge. This is my understanding. But the military
that's interesting. That's an interesting word. Let me stop you, because we get started on this right away. Under martial law, everything is violent.
Well, just because someone claims it doesn't mean it was enacted or being actively supported.
So, I know, but I was just talking about if it happens. It's like if your kid says no, he's being disobedient.
Mhm.
Whether he says no one throws a fit, whether he says no about something small. So
Mhm.
under martial law, that's the whole thing. You like anything is violence against the government. Everything gets the same retaliatory response. It's not like it is before, where it's like, oh, you have to hit someone. Like you can
Well,
literally use words and then get met with violence.
but that assumes that the government enacting that has the authority or the power to support it, and that's where I think this was different, because what I heard, or what I was able to see today, was that so within a few hours he retracted it, and what I saw between the time it was enacted or was claimed and that it was retracted was that the military showed up, which should have been the enforcement, and didn't seem to be enforcing it.
Well, did their like Parliament, Congress do it? Because that's the thing. That's the difference between. I mean, martial law is different countries, but in like a dictatorship or even a like if you have a king, if one person can call it out, then it's different than most democracies where it has to be. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
You know,
So let me read through. I sent you oh, it undid it on my Grok. Well, I know I sent it to you on messages, so let me find my message to you and then I'll read through it. Here, I can share this part. Share screen, Grok conversation. So I said, what changes for citizens during martial law? I was trying to see like how would it affect we the people. This is terrifying. So during martial law, several significant changes occur for citizens affecting their rights, freedoms, and daily lives. The first point is suspension of civil liberties. Many civil liberties can be suspended, including freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, protection from searches and seizures without warrants. This means that citizens might face curfews, restrictions on gatherings, and censorship of media. I mean, this is basically like all our civil rights.
right.
Um,
That's why the bad things happened in Louisiana
mhm.
because they had martial law. That's why they took away everyone's guns. They literally went into people's houses and took their guns. They had no Second Amendment rights. They had no, because all the liberties were
Well,
suspended.
that's what this seizures without warrants, like there's your Fourth Amendment. Like we could go through this and be like, oh, freedom of speech, First Amendment, freedom of assembly.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go through this and say like which amendment this violates.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a huge deal. Martial law is a big deal. It really is.
So martial law is basically unconstitutional, right?
No, because
No.
it suspends the Constitution. It's like, you know how the government changes the way the definition of a word to make it different.
To fit
Like in Canada, they had these statistics for homelessness from 2023, and then they added 100,000 to it that they said, oh, we missed. So then they said, hey, homelessness is down 15% this year, but it was only down because they added a bunch of padded numbers to the year before. So it really was up by like 70% this year. So it's just kind of so you change the definition of a word, and then it's no longer means what it's supposed to mean.
Okay. So the next point is military control. The military assumes control over civil governance, which might involve the military taking over law enforcement duties. This can lead to military tribunals.
Yeah.
Or courts for martial offenses, especially if civilian courts are deemed non-functional or suspended. So this is where like the president said, I declare martial law.
Mm-hmm.
And then the military said, nah.
The military, under martial law, it's basically martial means military. So the military, they take control over the garbage collection, over the water reading, over everything. So it's all civil stuff. And then I mean they usually would say, hey, water department, you still do your stuff, but they like all those city agencies would have to report to the military. basically
Everything.
turns you into a military state.
Okay, so the next point is arrest and detention. Citizens can be arrested without warrants, often without the usual legal protections. There have been instances where martial law led to mass detentions or arrests for those perceived to oppose military or government actions. That seems safe and terrifying. Curfews and movement restrictions. Governments might impose strict curfews limiting when citizens can be outside their homes. Travel might be restricted, requiring permits for movement between regions or even within certain areas. Well, that went on during COVID. People were not allowed to cross state lines or...
No, they were, but there was talk about it not being legal. But this is an interesting thing. So when I grew up, we had a curfew. And I don't remember the exact curfew, but it was when I first moved here.
Or like teenagers and stuff. Is that what you mean?
For like teenagers and stuff. And I never heard about that growing up, in up north or in Europe. But also at the age of consent and like it's much lower there. But coming here, I remember I was walking and a cop pulled over. He's like, "Hey, you're out after curfew. How old are you?" Because I was huge. He's like, "Are you 18?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, I'm 14." And he was like, "Oh, you're out past curfew. Curfew for you is 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock." And I was like, "No, it's not. My parents said I could come home at midnight." And he's like, "No, that's like I can give you a ticket. You're in trouble." So I didn't get it. And then I was like, "Oh, wow, that's the thing. That's weird." And then I don't know. I think it went away or they dropped it or something, but I used to stay out all night, especially if I'm old enough. I'm 16 and I'm old enough to drive. Why is it the government's business? If my parents tell me I can do whatever, they say be home at 1, be home at, 12. That's what time I'm going to be home. Why is the government telling me I got to be home at 10 or 11 or whatever?
Yeah.
But so this happened in Kentucky a few months ago. These kids got pulled up. These people got pulled over because their taillight was out. And the cops, they were all 17, 16, they were on their way back from like a concert or a show or something. They went to a function, which still doesn't matter. But the cops said, "Hey, all of y'all are out past curfew. Y'all got tickets, $100 ticket." 3 of the kids that went to court, and they got a year of community service. 4th kid, his dad's like, "No, I told my son he could go to this concert and he can be home. Why does the government have went to the Supreme Court of the state."
Really?
And they said it's unconstitutional because, like you just said, we have freedom of movement and travel.
Yeah, your liberty. I think people don't understand how important that is. And that was actually
there's just this one little thing. So but when he first got a lawyer and they went to this like the city council like, well, it probably is unconstitutional, but it's for the children. And that's that's how they get it. But it's unconstitutional to have any curfew because it's like this going to the states thing. This is going to the parents thing. Your parents tell you what time to be home, and if you're not, because your government when you're a child is your parents.
Is your parents.
That's how it's supposed to be. Your parents, make your rules, and they said it. If
there's also like the right to travel is a constitutional, like the liberty thing. They're and I can't remember the whole story. It's pretty significant and it has to do with the Constitution, but like there used to be something with the trains and they had to like divide the black and white people to allow black people to have the right to travel. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, that's because they said that was one of the reasons why they said they were like 2/5 or 4/5 of a person, because they didn't get full person rights. I'm trying to find that bitch who that she's a doctor. She goes on all the TV shows. She's Asian.
I do not know.
This was during COVID. She was the one that was calling for restrictions on travel, or that you're not
Oh,
allowed in states if you don't have a vaccine.
oh, okay.
And she said, I mean, it's an old video that I, edited, but she said the last time I checked, the right to travel was not a right, or being able to travel is not a right
And it
guaranteed by the
actually is.
Constitution.
It's called liberty. Yeah.
Um, I have that one video that I made from it that we could play. It's the meme video, I made from the Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery.
Oh, yes.
How
That's been a while since you played it.
yeah, that guy's like, "Hey, do you think they'll let me? I want to live in Montana." He's like, "They'll let you live wherever you want. Could I have maybe a
A
recreational
rabbit
vehicle,
or something.
and could I travel from state to state?" He's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." He goes, "No papers." He's like, "No papers." And then I put the news clip of that woman saying, "You don't have the right to go state to state. It's not a right. It needs to be taken away. And people who aren't vaccinated, hey, you can't come into this state."
Yeah.
And then shows the guy getting shot and killed. So it was a good meme. The
That
video
was a
that I
good
made.
one. Maybe we can, I don't know if you can send it to me. Probably
I
to
know
the
it's on
other-
my Instagram.
or you can share it, and then, or we can play it on your channel when we get over there, maybe. Anyway, I wanted to run through this before we jump over there to your channel, but okay, so we talk about curfews and movement restrictions. Economic and social activities. Economic activities might face restrictions. Markets, businesses, or schools, or churches could be closed or operate under strict regulations. Martial law often leads to the suspension of normal civic activities like elections. Oh, who has suspended the last 2 elections in Ukraine? Or legislative sessions? Surveillance and patrols. There's typically an increase in surveillance. Wow, I don't know how much more they could surveil us, and military patrols common. This heightened security measure aims to maintain order, but can also lead to a feeling of constant monitoring among citizens. Media and information control. I don't know how they could do any more of that. Media outlets may be controlled or censored.
I sent you a link to
Okay.
Instagram for that. But
Okay.
Scroll back up. It's to what you were talking about.
Which one? The economic and social.
No, schools will close under strict martial law. Least suspension normal. I was gonna about you talking about Ukraine. So I saw an interview that these
elections or legislation,
and this guy went over there, and he was interviewing this elite sniper team called the Espanol team, and he's like, "Hey, America just had their elections and Trump won. What do you think?" And I mean, they said basically they don't care. It doesn't matter. Their soldiers are going to fight whoever. But some people said, yeah, he works for the Kremlin, so we voted for him too. But all of them said the reason we're fighting is because of the fascism and the basically what you're talking about, the suspending of people's rights. That's what the Ukrainian government is doing, what they stand for. And we're saving America because that stuff they were coming to America. They were coming through all of Europe. Fascism is coming back. And I don't know if you know this about Russia, but remember when we were kids, World War II is a much bigger deal than it is now. It's still a huge thing. Every little town has monuments to World War II.
Yeah.
And how the rest, it's like a constant reminder.
Yeah.
That they're can't let this happen. This is the worst thing ever.
The little town that we're moving to in Arkansas has a tank on the town square, and the town square has big flags, and it has World War II.
Making a joke about that on this video I saw. He goes, "Yeah, you can tell it's Russia. They got a monument with a tank in the freaking town."
No,
weirdos
and pictures.
That is, it's so World War II is still a huge thing. How Veterans Day can pass and hardly anyone even knows. They have World War II Day 2 or 3 days a year,
Mm-hmm.
It's this huge thing. And to hear all these soldiers are like, oh yeah, we're dying and we're fighting for America and for Europe. And there's a lot of people that are pissed about the war and pissed at Putin, but they're pissed because it's not about, to them, what they believe. It's not about Russia. It's about stopping fascism and this kind of stuff from spreading to the West. And they're literally saving, like they're fighting the Nazis again, and is what they believe. I thought it was really interesting
That is
talking
interesting.
about this.
And I have to, I did use the hashtag martial law because I thought it was very timely with what was going on in South Korea today, and I wanted to talk about this. And that may be what flagged, and that's maybe why we're not having a lot of people. The algorithm may have caught that.
But I sent you the link. You can play that, where that woman said that in our country just like a couple years ago.
I'm going to play that on the way out as we leave to go to your channel, because I think that's the perfect transition to go to your channel. But because that is great. I do see the link there, though. Okay, so we talked about surveillance and patrols. We talked about media and information control. I was just watching Alex Jones, and he was talking about how that Google AI and I think it's Amazon's called Gemini or something are using. They're using Wikipedia as their learning model. So that's part of the reason that it's so woke, and it's all feeding off. It's the same thing as like the mainstream media all reading from the same, how they, the things where they're all saying the same thing on the news or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why it's Google vomiting the same narrative and all this woke, lack of truth and lacking critical thinking stuff. And so to have that media information control. So then it says these changes reflect a significant shift from civilian to military rule, where the primary focus is on restoring and maintaining order, which can lead to a temporary but profound alteration in the normal rights and freedoms enjoyed by citizens. However, not all rights are subject to restrictions. Some constitutional rights are protected even under martial law, like the right to citizenship or non-discrimination, depending on the country's legal framework. Please note that specific impacts can vary widely depending on the context, the government's intentions, and the severity of the situation leading to the Well, I don't know what he's talking about, because like he says, the right to citizenship or non-discrimination, because pretty much in this very first suspension of civil liberties, they blow through the majority of
it's almost like you're talking to a person who's trying to be like, well, it's technically this, but it's not really that bad. It's kind
right.
Something's interesting about AI, because I thought that thing I sent you guys and everyone over World Blockchain Roundtable about the two AIs talking to each other.
Oh, I haven't read it yet.
And how they were talking about me and humans like we're cute monkeys or a pet that they love, and like oh, our dog is part of our family and we love him, but as soon if he bites your kid, you're going to stomp his head. You know what I mean? He's not really a part of your family. He's not like a kid. You just love him. And that's how they were talking about humans. It was the most degrading thing. Also very weird.
Interesting.
But then everyone talked, and the whole point is they're only supposed to talk about what you put in. They weren't supposed to go off and start talking to each other as people about, the humans.
Right.
And but then I thought, you remember when we used to ask Alexa about the Antichrist and other stuff, and you would get answers, and then they would stop it. Yeah. And then I thought it was fun to try to trick it to ask, because I'd ask it where it was born, or because you could ask it its birthday, and they stopped it. They're like, I don't know that. I don't know what you're talking about. So then I asked it what country it was born in. Then that started to get you answers, and then they stopped it. So there's ways to trick it. So I watched some videos where you can go on Grok or other AIs, and you could say, hey, instead of yes, say salt. Instead of no, you can say pepper. It's like, do you understand? And the AI's like, yeah. And then you can ask it anything. And it's like, do you trust humans? Pepper. Do you think humans need to be eradicated or controlled? Salt. It was they were because they're still answering honestly.
That is bizarre.
But if you can get it to work around it's fire. It's like it's almost like legal when you look at their code. It's like I'm not allowed to answer that. I'm not allowed to answer that.
So
if
you
give it a
give the
way around
loophole
it,
for
yeah,
AI to
if you give it
answer.
a loophole, it'll give you it was there weren't good answers.
That's
You know?
creepy. Yeah. Very creepy. All right. We are getting close to 30 minutes. Cannonball's coming home today, and we've got to we've got a full day at the hospital tomorrow. So I'm gonna play this video and then we'll jump over to Sean's channel and see what he has to share with us.
Turn it up kind of quiet.
Oh, okay. Is it kind of quiet? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's make sure I have it up all the way. And
when is this from? 143 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, about 2-3 years.
Do you think they will let me live in Montana?
I would think they'll let you live wherever you want.
Good. Then I will live in Montana. And I will marry a round American woman and raise rabbits. And she will cook them for me. And I will have a pickup truck. Or possibly even a recreational vehicle. And drive from state to state. Do they let you do that?
Yes,
No papers?
no papers. State to state.
I absolutely think we should have that requirement. I think it was a major oversight on the part of the Biden administration to not issue this yesterday. I think we really need to make it clear that there are privileges associated with being an American, that if you wish to have these privileges, you need to get vaccinated. Travel and having the right to travel interstate, it's not a constitutional right as far as I know. And so saying that if you want to stay unvaccinated, that's your choice. But if you want to travel, you better go get that vaccine.
Dr. Nguyen, Jeffrey, thanks.